Really quick, everyone, if you haven't heard some of my recent episodes, I might sound just a bit different, and like I've said on those episodes and like I've said on this one, currently I have a different recording setup and I can't really be my normal boisterous self, and that doesn't mean I'm not excited. It just means that, again, I can't be as loud as I am in those other episodes. So I'm hoping that this is actually going to be the last episode with this recording setup, and then I'm going to be back to my normal one. So yeah, just please bear with me, and I appreciate you bearing with me. And also, thank you for bearing with me on this episode, because with this episode, I'm going to teach you how to lose your friends for just $11. Now, why would you want to do that? I'm not exactly questioning that, you've got your own reasons, I guess, but in case you do want to lose your friends for just $11, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. And to do that, well, our first step is actually to utilize a commander that is a really spicy one, and probably makes some spicy foods. I mean, it's a caterer, Rocco Cabaretti Caterer, a 3/1 Elf Druid that costs X, red, green, white, and it says, when it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, you may search your library for a creature card with mana value X or less put on the battlefield, then shuffle. Now, why am I showing this alternative art version of Rocco? Well, if you see any alternative art versions of cards, or, very specific, cards from specific sets, the reason is actually, again, this is an $11 deck. So I am making this as budget friendly as I possibly can. And actually, this version of Rocco is the most budget friendly of all the versions of Rocco. I think this one's only like 7 cents or something. So yeah, this is an incredibly budget friendly commander for a budget-friendly deck that, again, it can help you in a budget way lose your friends. Now, why exactly was Rocco chosen, though, outside of being incredibly budget-friendly? Well, Rocco is an incredible commander. It's basically like a creature tutor from your command zone that gets creatures directly into play, and that kind of a commander has a lot of potential. And of course, on this episode, I'm going to be showing you just the kind of potential it does have, again, even on a deck as low as this one budget at just $11. Now, before we actually jump into the cards on this episode, I just want to mention, like I mentioned in my other episodes, when I'm taking you through these cards, I'm going to be taking through different tactics to show you how this deck works and how we're going to win with it. And of course, if you are interested in this deck, make sure you check out that deck list link in the description below. And now with all that said, let's jump into the deck. So first up, we're actually going to start with the golden pig of this deck with the number 1 card out of our 99. And the golden pig of this deck, the best card in this deck, is Wirewood Symbiote. Now, this card actually might be a surprising one to see, especially on a budget this low, because again, our budget is $11, and this card itself, this version actually is the least expensive version. I believe it's like a dual decks version. Regardless, is $2.72 itself. So that is quite a high percentage for a 100 card deck. This is a high percentage of our budget just in one card. But believe me, this card is worth it. It's a 1/1 insect for a green that says return an elf you control to its owner's hand, untap target creature, play this ability only once each turn. So first up, we do have some, creatures in this deck that we'd like to be able to untap, and we'll talk about those here in a bit, but the most important part on this card is being able to return an elf we control back to our hand, essentially for free. And of course, the reason that is important, and the reason that elf is important, is because our commander is an elf. Rocco is an elf druid, so we can bounce our commander back to our hand essentially for free with this. Now we can only do this once a turn, but that's okay. So very simply put, our play the vast majority of the time with this deck is as soon as we have 4 mana, we cast Rocco for 4, or X equals 1 essentially, and we go get Wirewood Symbiote, we get it directly into play, and we bounce Rocco right back to our hand, so we are ready to tutor for another creature. Because the goal of this deck and how we're going to be losing our friends is to combo off as quickly as we can, and we can combo in quite a few ways, and Wirewood Symbiote is a great card at helping us get to that, because again, being able to tutor for multiple creatures can really help us combo quite quickly. And the first combo I want to talk about is actually a very simple one with Devoted Druid and Vizier Remedies, and we'll also just talk about, a way to actually utilize that combo to win with a card like Valakut Invoker. Devoted Druid has tap, add a green, and put a -1/-1 counter on it, untap Devoted Druid. Vizier Remedies is also just a creature that is very low to the ground, again costs 1 and a white, so just 2 mana itself, and says if one of our -1/-1 counters are put on a creature you control, that many -1/-1 counters -1 are put on it instead. So essentially the combo works like this very simply. We can tap Devoted Druid for a mana, then we go to put a -1/-1 counter on it to untap it. Vizier Remedies says, let's subtract that by 1, so we don't get that -1/-1 counter, and Devoted Druid just untaps essentially for free, without any downside. So we basically can just utilize Devoted Druid to tap for a green, untap it for free, an infinite amount of time, so yeah, just basically as much green mana as we could ever want. Now, obviously that just doesn't win us the game, on its own, but it can really help us get there. We can utilize that mana to cast, a wide variety of things from our hand, or, if we can recast our commander just one more time, when, we can utilize that mana for X or whatever we want, essentially. But yeah, we can go get Valakut Invoker, which is a great way to actually finish off our opponents. It has pay 8, it deals 3 damage to any target. Now 8 is a lot to pay, but again, when you've got infinite mana, it doesn't really matter how much that activate ability is. So yeah, we can ping down any targets, including our opponent's faces. So yeah, this is basically infinite damage to all of them and all their things, and we can just win from there. So yeah, this is one of our combos, and again, Whitewood Symbiote can really help us set ourselves up for this. Getting Devoted Druid and Vizier Remedies out can be quite simple. Again, for that X for our commander's cost, it's just going to be 2 for each of them. Next up, some slightly higher costs, but again, we'll talk about here in a bit. We've got plenty of ways to ramp in this deck. Let's talk about cards like Ivy Lane Denizen, Scurry Oak, and Herd Baloth. Ivy Lane Denizen is an incredible combo piece in this deck. It says whenever another green creature enters the battlefield under control, put a +1 counter on target creature. And then Scurry Oak says whenever one or more +1 counters are put on Scurry Oak, you may create a 1/1 green squirrel creature token. In a similar way, there's Herd Baloth, which says whenever one or more +1 counters are put on Herd Baloth, you may create a 4/4 green beast creature token. So the combo is actually quite simple with either of these. Basically, yeah, just have Ivy Lane Denizen out, get one of these in play, get a counter on them, and then, they create a token that is, a creature token that is green. Essentially, either a squirrel with the Scurry Oak, or again, a beast with the Herd Baloth, which of course will trigger Ivy Lane Denizen, so we can get another counter on a creature, and of course we just keep getting that counter on, either Scurry Oak or Herd Baloth. We just keep getting an infinite number of creature tokens. So yeah, Ivy Lane combos fantastically with either of these cards. And I guess when I say, we get an infinite amount of, creature tokens, we also get an infinite amount of counters on, either Herd Baloth or Scurry Oak, so they can be quite massive themselves. Now, obviously that doesn't just outright win us the game, but it can definitely be a great way to do so when we have the opportunity to attack with them. So this is yet another way that we can actually combo. And one final way actually involves cards like Temur Sabertooth, Livio, Oathsworn Sentinel, and Village Bellringer. Now, Temur Sabertooth is another fantastic card in this deck, somewhat reminiscent of our Golden Pig actually. By paying 1 green, we can bounce another creature we control back to its owner's hand, and if we do, Temur Sabertooth gains indestructible until end of turn. So essentially a fantastic, repeatable way to bounce a creature back to our hand. Now this one actually does cost mana, but it is repeatable, and there's no limit to how many times we can do it, outside of mana. Now with this, we'll actually get how to combo with it in a second, but next up, Livio Oathsworn Sentinel is another way to combo as well. Pay 1 and a white, choose an target creature, its controller may exile with an Aegis counter on it. Then by paying 2 and a white, we can tap Livio and return all exile cards with Aegis counters on them to the battlefield under their owner's control. So this one doesn't bring a creature back to our hand, so it's not going to really help us with Rocco essentially, but it can help us with other things like, an ETB. And that ETB would be Village Bellringers. It's got flash and it says when it enters the battlefield, untap all creatures you control. So the combo that involves these are, either Temur Sabertooth and Village Bellringer or Livio and Village Bellringer. And basically, if we have a bunch of mana dorks in play that can tap for a good amount of mana, we can very easily generate infinite mana with these. And of course, with Temur Sabertooth especially, this can be incredibly effective because we can also get Rocco back into our hand and recast Rocco as many times as we want, basically getting back, or getting out every single creature from our library essentially. So yeah, we can easily combo off and win with that. Obviously, we don't even need, every single creature in our library. We can just go get Valakut Invoker to, take all of our opponents. But yeah, these can both be incredible combos that can help us generate infinite mana at the very least and can help us out, again, in a wide variety of ways. Now, one more card that I will mention really quick before I get to those cards that can really help with that combo is Magus of the Order. It has pay green, tap, sacrifice Magus of the Order, and another green creature, search the library for a green creature card put on the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Now, as you've seen, all these combos essentially revolve around at least one green creature card, so yeah, this Magus can really help us just, sacrifice any of our other green creatures, and we've got a ton of them, we'll talk about them here in a bit. We can sacrifice them and this to go get any of our, combo pieces, whatever card we need, get it right into play, and can help us combo off, in combination with our commander very quickly. And speaking of quick, we are going to be running a ton of mana dorks in this deck to help us combo off quickly. And again, these mana dorks can be great, especially in combination again with that Village Bellringers combo for that infinite mana. And so because of that, we are running a ton of mana dorks. And let's start with the Land of Werewolves and Absence Pilgrim, some great low to the ground mana dorks that can tap for a green, and Absence Pilgrim taps for a white. Regardless, each of these are low to the ground, and yeah, on this budget, I actually had to keep it to just these two for the 1 mana dorks. Obviously, if you're willing to extend the budget just a bit more, there's a lot of 1 mana dorks that can really help out. Regardless, there are a ton of fantastic 2 mana dorks that can help you, of course. Gold Mirror can tap for a white, Copper Mirror can tap for a green, and Druid the Cowl can tap for a green. Next up, unsurprisingly, we've got more mana dorks. Wirewood Elf can tap for a green, Leaf Glider can tap for a green, and Golden Hind can tap for a green. Again, with this deck, we want to ramp early and often getting a ton of mana dorks in play to really set ourselves up to go off quickly. So we're also going to be running Elfane Druid, which can tap for a green. We don't really have any kick spells in this deck, so it can't help us with the other part, but still, Werebear can tap for a green. It can also get bigger if we have Threshold, and Heartwarding can tap for a green, and we can pay 2 to sacrifice it to draw a card if we need to. Now, you might think we might be done with mana dorks by now, but we are not quite done just yet. So moving on, we've got Harvester Druid, which can tap to add 1 mana of any color that a land we control could produce, and Naga Vitalist does the exact same thing. Green Ranger is kind of like the exact opposite of this though, can tap to add 1 mana of any color a land an opponent controls could produce. So typically this can help us with our colors as well. And in the exact same way there's Sylvark Explorer, which does the exact same thing. Next up there's Catilda, which says, human creatures you control have tap add 1 mana of any of this creature's colors. And yeah, we've got a decent amount of humans in this deck that can help us out with this. Speaking of which, there's Humble Naturalist, which can tap to add 1 mana of any color, but we can only spend this mana to cast a creature spell, and yeah, luckily for us, we've got a ton of creatures in this deck. Up next though, we've got Rift Sower, which has to spend 2 for a green, so this can be a great turn 1 play, and it can tap for 1 mana of any color. Speaking of which, we've got Reclusive Taxidermist and Drawer of the Mighty, which can also tap for 1 mana of any color, and Reclusive Taxidermist can actually get larger if we've got 4 more creature cards in our graveyard. Moving on, there's Ornithopter Paradise, which can tap for 1 mana of any color, and Paradise Root, which can do the exact same thing, but also has hexproof if it's untapped. And finally, one incredible mana dork in this deck is Sky Shroud Elf, which can tap for a green, or we can pay 1 to actually filter our mana into white or red. This is fantastic, especially when we are generating, again, infinite green mana with something like our Devoted Druid combo. We can actually just filter that mana and make whatever we need to. Now, all these mana dorks are great, but we also have some mana dorks that can tap for even more. So next up, let's talk about Leafkin Druid, which can tap for a green, but if we've got 4 more creatures, and we've got a ton of creatures in this deck, it can tap for green instead. And then there's Whisper of the Wilds, which can tap for a green, but if we've got a creature with power 4 or greater, it can tap for green. In a somewhat similar way, there's Orochi Merge Keeper, which can tap for a green, or tap for green if it's modified. Up next, we've got Overgrown Battlement, which has Defender, and it can tap for green for each creature with Defender we control. And of course, we do have other Defender creatures like Ulvenwalded Captive, which can tap for a green, but if we transform it, it can tap for colorless. And speaking of transforming, next up there's Weaver of Blossoms, which can tap for 1 mana of any color, and if it flips onto the other side, it can tap for 2 mana of any one color. Next up there's Finehorn Elder, which is a great 3 mana creature that can tap for green. Speaking of which, we've also got Green Weaver Druid, which does the exact same thing. 3 mana creature, taps for green. Whereas Vladimir, also a great 3 mana creature, can tap for colorless, and Undermountain Adventurer might cost 4, but it does have Vigilance, and it can tap for green. And when it does enter the battlefield, we take the initiative, and if we've completed a dungeon, this can tap for 6 green instead, which is a ton. Speaking of a ton, there's Circle of Elders, which has tap add 3 to your mana pool, activate spell if you control creatures with total power 8 or greater. And then Elena Kessig Trapper is a 4/3 with first strike, and it can tap to amount of red equal to greatest power when creatures we control that enter the battlefield this turn, so this can actually end up tapping for a lot depending on what creatures are coming into play. Like, Elvish Aberration, which is a 4/5 that can tap for green. Now we've gone through a ton of mana dorks, but we still have 2 that can be incredibly impactful as well that we still need to talk about. And the first of those is Zertod Druid, which can tap for a green, and says whenever you tap it for mana, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. So this can actually be a win condition in itself with any of our Village Bellringer combos. Again, by infinitely untapping this, we can just keep infinitely tapping it for mana, and also, pinging our opponents down. In a somewhat similar way, we've got another mana dork that can actually be a win condition too with Leafkin Avenger. It can tap for a green for each creature we control with power 4 or greater, and by paying 7 in a red, it deals damage equal to its power to target player or planeswalker. Again, if we are able to generate infinite mana of, all of our colors, we can essentially activate this as many times as we want and ping down all of our opponents. So yeah, even our mana dorks can get in on the action and actually finish our opponents off. Moving on top of cards like, Wirewood Symbiote and Temur Sabertooth, we've got other ways to actually bounce our commander or, other important pieces back to our hand with cards like your Ambush on the Road, Alley Evasion, and Light the Way. Ambush on the Road says, return target creature you control to its owner's hand, or target creature gets +1/+3 until end of turn. And then Alley Evasion is basically the exact same thing, but it's going to be +1/+2 instead. But yeah, most of the time we're just going to be bouncing a creature we control back to our hand. And then Light the Way says, put a +1 counter on target creature or vehicle, untap it, return target permanent you control to its owner's hand. So yeah, either of those options can be great, but yeah, bouncing a permanent we control is probably what we're going to do most of the time. Moving on, there's Shepherd of the Flock, or should I say the Adventure, Usher to Safety, for just a white mana, return target permanent you control to its owner's hand. And speaking of creatures that can help us out, there's the Rescuer, which has, when it enters the battlefield, you may return another permanent you control to its owner's hand. And then White Main Line also has Flash, and when it enters the battlefield, return a creature you control to its owner's hand. So each of these can help us out in a lot of situations. Speaking of which, there's Leave to Chance. Leave is going to let us return any number of target permanents we own back to our hand, so yeah, this can come in huge. And Chance says discard any number of cards and draw that many cards, so it can even help us out from the graveyard. And speaking of graveyard, we also have some ways to get back our combo pieces with cards like Nature's Spiral, Evolution Charm, and You Happen on a Glade. Nature's Spiral says return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. Evolution Charm says choose one, search life for a basic land, get in your hand, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand, or target creature gains flying until end of turn. The vast majority of the time that middle option is what we want, but yeah, any of these can be helpful. Speaking of which, there's You Happen on a Glade, which says choose one, search life for the 2 basic lands, put them in your hand, or return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. So again, if we need those basics, we need our land drops, great. If we need to get something back, we can as well. Speaking of flexible, next up there's Naya Charm, which says choose one, it deals 3 damage to our creature, return target card from a graveyard to its owner's hand, or tap all creatures target player controls. So yeah, that can help us out in a lot of situations. Speaking of which, there's Dried's Revival, which can bring us back a card from our graveyard to our hand, and we can flash it back for 4 and a green. In a somewhat similar way, we've got a creature that can help us out with this. Timeless Witness has an ETB that's going to get us back a card from our graveyard to our hand, and we can eternalize it from our graveyard for 5 green to do that again. But now that we've talked about every single non-land card in this deck, let's talk about the lands. And of course, with trying to make this as budget friendly as possible at just $11, and since we've got a lot of mana fixing with our mana dorks, we're going to be running just basics with this deck with forests, plains, and mountains. And now that we've talked about every single card in this deck, let's talk about the price. Like I mentioned, at the beginning of the episode, and you saw in the thumbnail, and the description, the title, yeah, this is an $11 deck. Well, okay, specifically $11.23. Though do keep in mind that in this estimated cost, those basic lands are not included, but you might already have those, or you can get them from your LGS, or yeah, you can just buy them in bulk for very cheap. And also keep in mind that you actually might be able to save even more than this estimated cost for the deck if you buy this deck on TCG Player and utilize heavily played and damaged cards. There might be some extra savings there, so yeah, of course those cards that are heavily played and damaged need a home too. Though do keep in mind that this estimated cost does not include the cost of shipping, which might vary depending upon where you live.
And with that, this show is coming to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. So in the comments below, let me know what your thoughts on this episode are, and as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.